Hello, my name is Carol. I'm 42 years old and work as a literature teacher at a private school. I have always liked reading and writing, and my employment has been a continual source of fulfillment, both financially and personally. I enjoy what I do, but I need to share something about my personal life. Gustavo has been my spouse for 20 years. He is a good man who works hard and has always been a good husband. In the beginning, our relationship was lively and full of enthusiasm every day after work, and our life was marked by passion and connection. However, as the years passed, the daily routine started to wear down our relationship, turning what was once exciting and new into monotonous and repetitive. Gustavo is 48 years old, and he works as a civil engineer. Our marriage has always been stable, but over time, the spark of passion has faded. Whereas I am more vivacious and yearn for romance and adventure, Gustavo has always been more reserved and introverted. Although he did not mind my friendships with other women, Gustavo began to distance himself even more from me. Our marriage was not unhappy. We had a beautiful home, 2 lovely children who were already in college, and a stable routine, but deep down I felt incomplete and missed the intimacy and passion we shared. I longed for more connection, but Gustavo seemed content with the comfortable and predictable life we had. I would spend time with my friends and invite him to join us, but he preferred to be alone. Once had I realized that my needs were not being met and tried several times to talk to Gustavo about how I felt, he seemed not to understand or know how to respond. He would always say that I could seek satisfaction in other ways or with other people, but I understood that age was catching up with him. Even with his permission, I did not pursue other men, only spending time with my friends. It was in this state of dissatisfaction and unfulfilled desire that our new neighbors moved into the house next door. Marina and Pedro were a new couple in the neighborhood. Marina, 39 years old, was a beautiful and lively woman, while Pedro, 45 years old, was serious and devout. They were very religious, and their beliefs were respected by everyone. They had a son, Rafael, who was 22 years old, polite and reserved. Typical of someone raised in a devout household. Rafael reminded me a lot of Gustavo in his youth, and I saw him as a younger version of my husband, evoking memories of the peak of our relationship. Marina and I quickly became friends. She was a cheerful, talking of person and always had something interesting to share. Her faith was an important part of her life, and she often invited me to church events and meetings. Although I did not share the same religious beliefs, I appreciated her company and the values she brought to our friendship. Marina was quite charming. Pedro, on the other hand, was more reserved and serious, but always very respectful and polite. Their son Rafael was always present in our interactions. He was polite and helpful, but still showed some immaturity. Our neighborhood was quiet and safe, and the arrival of these new neighbors brought a new dynamic to our routine. Our families began to get together frequently for barbecues and dinners. Over time, I noticed that despite his reserve, Rafael had a sparkle in his eyes and a curiosity that set him apart. He was young and athletic, and despite being religious, he enjoyed working out a lot. His fit, well-toned body was quite attractive. I had seen him shirtless, and to my surprise found him very appealing. It was a sensation I hadn't experienced in a long time, and it started to affect me in unexpected ways. I knew these feelings were dangerous and inappropriate, especially considering Rafael's family's religious devotion. However, the more I tried to suppress these feelings, the stronger they became. I found myself thinking about Rafael frequently, even when he wasn't around. His youth served as a constant reminder of what I was missing in my life. Although I knew I was flirting with something risky, I couldn't help it, especially with a monotonous routine and lack of passion in my marriage, which only intensified these feelings. One afternoon started out like any other, but I had no idea that this repressed urge would soon materialize in a way that would completely alter my life. Gustavo was at work, and I was home alone enjoying a rare moment of tranquility. That's when I heard a strange noise coming from the kitchen. When I investigated, I found a rat in the corner of the pantry. I had a terrible fear of rats and became frantic. Normally Gustavo would handle this kind of problem, and I was about to call someone when I saw Rafael's shirtless in the neighbor's garden helping his mother organize some plants. Without thinking too much, I went to the backyard and called out to him, "Rafael, can you help me with something?" I asked, trying not to sound desperate. He looked at me with curiosity and agreed to follow me to my house. When we got inside, I showed him where the rat was. Rafael grabbed a broom and began trying to chase the rat out of the house. With Rafael in my home, I started to focus on other things and almost forgot about the rat. After a few minutes of struggle, Rafael managed to drive the rat out through the back door. "There, I think it won't be coming back," he said, smiling. "Raphael, you really saved me," I said, expressing my gratitude and relief. "As rats terrify me." I offered him a glass of water, which he accepted, though I had put a little medicine in the drink. I knew Raphael was reserved and wouldn't show interest easily in someone older like me. There was a noticeable tension in the air as we discussed his college interests and future plans at the kitchen table. I could tell that the effects of the water he had consumed were starting to set in. When Raphael tried to cover himself discreetly, he was unable to conceal the bulge in his body, and I became aware of how attracted I was to him. His youth and innocence drove me crazy. I couldn't stop wondering how someone so young could save something only for after marriage. My heart was pounding, so I put my hand over his without considering the repercussions. Raphael looked at me in shock, but he didn't remove his hand. The moment seemed to last forever, and I felt an intensity one hadn't felt in years without giving it much thought. It didn't take long for things to get even more intense. At that point, I ended up taking Raphael's virginity. It was an impulsive and uncontrollable act, but it was full of an intensity one had only felt at the beginning of my marriage with Gustavo. Later, as we lay side by side, reality started to set in. I leaned in and kissed him, and he hesitated for a moment before giving in. The passion I had kept for so long erupted, and before I knew it, all morality and fears vanished. I realized Gustavo was coming, so I asked Raphael to leave, but before he left, I took his phone number so we could stay in touch. In the days that followed, my meetings with Raphael were a flurry of emotions, and I knew that what I had done was wrong in many ways, but I couldn't feel bad because I felt alive and wanted something that I hadn't had in a long time. We continued to meet in secret, and each encounter was charged with wild intensity. I kept up the appearance of a happy marriage with Gustavo, and he had no suspicions, so our routine went on as usual, but my guilt only increased. One quiet night after another encounter with Raphael, I realized that I could no longer live this lie. The guilt was eating me up. I pretended to read a book as Gustavo watched TV in the living room. My heart was heavy, and I knew I had to tell him the truth. I tried to control my tremors as I murmured, "We need to talk," and he switched off the TV and looked at me worriedly. "What's wrong, love? You look distressed." I took a deep breath and felt tears welling up in my eyes. "I've cheated on you," I confessed, and the silence that followed was unbearable. Gustavo looked at me as he tried to comprehend what I had just said. "What are you saying?" I said, my voice shaking. I expected him to become angry, but instead he remained silent for a few moments and asked, "Are you serious this?" with a surprising amount of composure. "Yes, I am," he said. "I know it's unforgivable, but I couldn't hide it from you any longer." I replied, tears streaming down my face. Gustavo took a deep breath and, to my surprise, asked if I still had feelings for Raphael. I was momentarily stunned, but then I honestly answered that I did instead of displaying fury. I couldn't believe what I was hearing when Gustavo offered, "What if I joined you?" with an unexpected idea. "Carolina, I also have my own fantasies, so if we can figure out how to be happy together, we could try." He proposed, which surprised me, but I had a gut feeling that it might work, so we started a new chapter in our relationship. For a few months, we lived a double life, keeping Raphael a secret from his parents, but surprisingly, the three of us enjoyed this new arrangement. It gave our marriage new life, even with my friends. Gustavo now participated more and saw the different spark Raphael brought, which changed everything for a few months. There was a new vitality in our relationship, and Raphael seemed more comfortable and confident, but we knew that this couldn't last forever. Raphael would naturally follow Marina and Pedro when they revealed they were relocating to a new city because of a new career opportunity for Pedro. The news was devastating for all of us, but especially for me because I knew I would have to say goodbye to Raphael the night before the relocation. "Gustavo, I will miss you all." Raphael hugged us and said, "Those months with us were unforgettable. Without us, Raphael would have remained in his cocoon until today, but we would also miss him greatly, but we would always have our memories together." After Raphael left, Gustavo and I sat in silence thinking back on everything that had happened. Our marriage would never be the same, and we knew that we had discovered a new understanding of each other which had strengthened us. Raphael and I had a final meeting, and it was an emotional moment filled with both sadness and gratitude for the time we had spent together. The days that followed were challenging because we missed Raphael, But we were also thankful because Gustavo and I grew closer than before. Raphael had given our relationship new vitality. Even though Raphael was no longer with us, the moments we shared kept us united, and our lives returned to normal. The experience taught us the value of honesty and communication in our relationship. If I hadn't told Gustavo about the affair, perhaps none of this would have happened and our marriage might have been lost. Sincerity is essential and transforms everything. Please remember to like and subscribe to the Music channel if you enjoyed this story. Gustavo started going out with me on nights out with my friends, and we started talking more about how to make our relationship better. Our life took on new meaning, and we kept encouraging one another by reminding ourselves of what we had learnt about ourselves and what really mattered. We knew that our journey was far from over, and life was getting richer and deeper, and we were prepared to face anything together.